My name is Victoria Chin, 27 years old, and I never expected my sister's glamorous New York wedding to be the place where my family would finally see who I really am. I was adjusting my maid of honor dress in the hotel bathroom when I overheard my father's voice through the thin walls. She's just a security guard. Nothing like her sister. The familiar tone of disappointment hit me like it always did, but he had no idea what would happen in the next few hours, or that his just a security guard daughter would end up saving his reputation and making headlines across the city. Growing up in the Chun household meant living under a microscope of achievement. Our brownstone in Manhattan's Upper East Side housed a family where excellence wasn't encouraged, it was mandatory. My father, David Chun, was a renowned cardiac surgeon whose patient list included celebrities and politicians. My mother, Eleanor, was a federal judge whose decisions had shaped legal precedent. Their wedding photo, displayed prominently in our foyer, showed two people who looked like they belonged in a medical journal's success story: brilliant, accomplished, and from families where failure wasn't an option. My older sister, Sarah, had followed the golden path flawlessly. Harvard Medical School, residency at Johns Hopkins, fellowship in pediatric surgery. By the time I was finishing high school, Sarah was already being featured in medical publications as one of the most promising young surgeons in the country. Family dinners were filled with discussions of her latest research, her groundbreaking procedures, her inevitable rise to department head. Then there was me, Victoria, Vic to everyone except my parents, who insisted on using my full name as if it might add weight to my disappointing choices. I wasn't stupid or lazy. I graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA and could have gone to any number of prestigious universities. But during my junior year, something happened that changed everything. A security expert came to speak at our career day about corporate protection and threat assessment. Something clicked inside me that day: the systematic approach to keeping people safe, the psychology of predicting and preventing problems, the blend of physical and mental skills required. When I shared my newfound interest at dinner, my father actually laughed. "Security is what people do when they can't get into medical or law school, Victoria," he said, not even looking up from a surgical journal. My mother tried to be diplomatic. "Sweetheart, with your grades, you could do so much more. Maybe criminal psychology if you're interested in that area." But I was stubborn, another Chin family trait. Throughout the rest of high school, I focused on developing skills my family didn't value. While Sarah studied organic chemistry, I took self-defense classes and studied surveillance techniques. I joined the school's ROTC program, which my parents tolerated only because it looked impressive on college applications. The real confrontation came senior year when college decisions had to be made. The expectation was clear: Ivy League, pre-med, or pre-law. I applied to those schools to keep peace, but also secretly applied to John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. When my acceptance letter arrived with a scholarship, I was thrilled. My parents were horrified. "Criminal justice," my father said, the words leaving his mouth like a diagnosis of terminal illness. "Victoria, that's a degree for people who want to be police officers." "What's wrong with being a police officer?" I challenged. "We didn't sacrifice everything to give you the best education possible so you could walk a beat," my mother interjected with judicial precision. That conversation marked the beginning of years of family tension. Despite their disapproval, I accepted John Jay's offer. Sarah tried to mediate, suggesting I could always transfer to pre-med after a year, but I was determined. The day I moved into my dorm, my parents helped carry boxes with stiff politeness. As they were leaving, my father handed me a credit card. "We still expect excellence, Victoria. You're still a Chun, even if we don't understand your choices." College was where I flourished. My professors recognized my natural aptitude for threat assessment and security planning. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in security management and immediately landed a position with Meridian Security Solutions, one of the top private security firms in Manhattan. But to my family, I was still just working security. They had no interest in learning about the sophisticated nature of corporate security, the high-level clients we protected, or the advanced training I received. When relatives asked about me, my parents quickly changed the subject to Sarah's latest surgical achievement or publication. After 3 years with Meridian, My reputation for exceptional situational awareness and threat prevention caught the attention of Elite Guardian Services, a firm so prestigious in security circles that it was like being recruited by Goldman Sachs in the financial world. They specialized in executive protection for Fortune 500 CEOs, foreign dignitaries, and A-list celebrities. The background check alone took 6 months. When I got the job, my salary tripled overnight. I moved into a luxury apartment in Soho, traveled internationally with clients, and developed expertise in everything from cybersecurity to diplomatic protocol. But I made a decision that would ultimately lead to the wedding revelation. I told my family nothing about the prestige of my new position. When they asked about the job change, I simply said I'd moved to another security company. This created the double life I maintained for the next 2 years. To my family, I remained their disappointing daughter who had chosen a blue-collar job. In reality, I was a senior security consultant protecting some of the most influential people in the world. My colleagues became my real family, people who understood and respected what I did. My specialty became covert protection, security that doesn't look like security. I could attend high society events as a guest while monitoring every potential threat. This skill would prove invaluable at Sarah's wedding. Sarah's wedding was being held at the Plaza, with 400 guests including several of New York's most prominent families. As maid of honor, I'd arrived early to help with final preparations. While adjusting my burgundy silk dress in the bridal suite, I noticed something that immediately triggered my professional instincts. A man in a hotel uniform was wheeling a cart through the corridor, but his posture was wrong. Too alert, too focused. His shoes were expensive Italian leather, not the practical footwear hotel staff typically wore. Most telling, he kept touching his ear as if listening to something, but wore no visible earpiece. I casually observed from the doorway and spotted 2 other suspicious individuals, a woman in catering attire whose behavior didn't match her supposed role, and a man in a guest suit who was clearly conducting surveillance rather than attending the wedding. My training kicked in. This was a coordinated operation targeting a high-profile event full of wealthy guests wearing expensive jewelry. I texted my supervisor at Elite Guardian. At family wedding, Plaza Hotel. Observing possible 3-person theft crew conducting pre-op surveillance. Professional quality. Her response was immediate. Send photos. We'll run them through known criminal databases. I discreetly photographed the suspects and sent them over. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message that made my blood run cold. Confirmed. Marco, Vitelli crew. High-end jewel thieves. Hit 5 society weddings in past 3 months. NYPD notified, but response time estimated 30 minutes. Can you maintain eyes on targets? I looked around the bridal suite at Sarah in her diamond-studded tiara, our grandmother's pearl necklace, and the expensive jewelry worn by the other bridesmaids. In the adjacent room, wedding gifts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars were displayed on tables. The ceremony was starting in an hour. Will do, I texted back. Ceremony in 60 minutes. We'll try to delay if necessary. Do not engage, came the immediate response. These individuals are armed and dangerous. Under normal circumstances, I would have followed that directive. But this wasn't a normal circumstance. This was my sister's wedding being targeted, and waiting 30 minutes might be too late. I excused myself from the bridal suite and moved quickly through the hotel service areas, using techniques I'd learned for navigating unfamiliar buildings. In a storage room near the ballroom, I found evidence of their preparation, a modified cart with hidden compartments, perfect for quickly loading and removing stolen items. As I was examining it, I heard voices approaching. I hid behind a rack of linens as the door opened and 2 of the suspects entered. The fake waiter and a 4th person I hadn't seen before, a tall man with cold eyes who was clearly in charge. Timelines moved up, the leader was saying. Security shift change is at 2:15, not 2:30. We go during the ceremony. Less witnesses, more time before discovery. What about the bride's jewelry? The fake waiter asked. Leave that to Sophia, the leader replied. She'll create a distraction, spilled wine, emergency in the bathroom. Something to get the bride alone. They were planning to target Sarah directly. My sister, on her wedding day. After they left, I had a decision to make. I could wait for backup that might not arrive in time, or I could act. The decision was made for me when I spotted the leader heading toward the bridal suite during a time when I knew Sarah would be alone for final photos. I followed, maintaining distance. He used some kind of electronic device to override the door lock and slipped inside. I waited 30 seconds, then entered to find him rifling through the bridesmaids' belongings, already having filled a small bag with jewelry and phones. "Hotel security," I said calmly. "Step away from those items." He turned, and I could see him calculating whether this bridesmaid in an elegant dress could pose a real threat. His hand moved toward his jacket. I didn't wait to find out if he was armed. Years of training took over. When he lunged toward me, I sidestepped, using his momentum against him. A precise strike to his solar plexus doubled him over, followed by a joint lock that dropped him to his knees. I secured his hands with a phone charger cord I grabbed from the table. The door burst open and 2 actual hotel security guards entered, followed by NYPD officers who had finally arrived. "Perfect timing," I said dryly. "His team includes at least 2 others in the ballroom area." Within minutes, the entire crew was in custody. I returned to the bridal suite just as Sarah was putting on her final touches, completely unaware of what had just transpired. "Where were you?" she asked. "I was looking for you for photos." "Just checking on the flowers," I lied smoothly. "You look absolutely perfect." The wedding proceeded beautifully. Sarah walked down the aisle radiant. The ceremony was flawless, and the reception was everything she'd dreamed of. No one except hotel security, and the police knew about the attempted robbery. What I didn't realize was that the plaza's security cameras had captured my takedown of Marco Vitelli. Or that by morning, that footage would be playing on every local news station in New York City. I woke up to my phone buzzing incessantly. Bleary-eyed, I opened dozens of missed calls and messages from Elite Guardian colleagues, most saying variations of "nice work" and "you're famous." Confused, I clicked on a link my supervisor had sent with the message. "Cat's out of the bag, Vic, hope you're ready." The link took me to a New York news station's website. The headline made my stomach drop. "Society wedding saved by undercover security expert. Notorious jewel thief captured." The video, clearly from hotel security footage, showed me in my burgundy bridesmaid dress professionally neutralizing Marco Vitelli. Though the camera angle partially obscured my face, anyone who knew me would recognize me instantly. The article identified me as an operative from Elite Guardian Services, one of the nation's most prestigious private security firms, who happened to be attending the wedding. A quote from an NYPD detective praised the exceptional training and quick thinking of the security professional who prevented what could have been a theft of over $800,000 in jewelry and gifts. I sat up fully awake. This wasn't how I'd planned for my family to discover the truth about my career. My phone rang with my mother's ringtone. I took a deep breath and answered. "Victoria, are you watching the news?" Her voice held an unfamiliar tone of confusion and shock. "I just saw it, Mom. Your father and I are in the hotel restaurant. Could you come down? We need to discuss what's happening." The plaza's restaurant was bustling with wedding guests enjoying post-celebration brunch. As I approached my parents' table, I noticed my father sitting rigidly, his newspaper folded but unread. My mother was stirring her coffee absently. I slid into the empty chair across from them. "So," my father began carefully, "Elite Guardian Services is not what we understood it to be." "No, it's not," I replied simply. "The news is calling it one of the most prestigious security firms in the country," my mother said. "They said you're a senior consultant who protects Fortune 500 executives and foreign dignitaries." "That's correct." My father's hands were clenched on the table. "And you've allowed us to believe for years that you were working some entry-level security position because—" The question I'd been dreading and anticipating for years. "Because you made it abundantly clear that unless I was a doctor or lawyer, my career wasn't worth discussing. You dismissed security work as beneath our family, so I stopped trying to make you understand." Before either parent could respond, Sarah appeared at our table, phone in hand, her eyes wide with excitement and confusion. "Vic, you're all over social media. Look at this." She showed us her screen displaying a viral video of my takedown with the caption, "Bridesmaid by day, badass security expert by night #wedding ninja. The whole family is talking about it, Sarah continued. Aunt Linda says you probably saved $500,000 in jewelry. Is that true? And do you really protect celebrities and politicians? My mother looked pale. My father was staring at Sarah's phone, watching his daughter, the family disappointment, efficiently neutralizing a dangerous criminal. Sarah, could you give us a moment? I asked gently. After she left, an uncomfortable silence fell over our table. Why didn't you tell us the truth about your position? My father asked finally. I tried, in the beginning, I said carefully. I tried to explain that security isn't just guards at malls, that there are levels of expertise just like in medicine or law. But you weren't interested in hearing it. My mother looked ashamed. We may have been close-minded. You introduced me to your colleagues yesterday as just a security guard. I reminded my father. You were embarrassed by my career. He flinched. I didn't understand what you actually did. You never asked, I replied simply. Not once in 5 years have you asked about my work with genuine interest. You assumed, and I stopped correcting you. A breaking news alert appeared on the restaurant's television. The morning show was interviewing the NYPD detective about the arrest. Elite Guardian Services is known for hiring only the top 1% of security professionals, the detective was saying. Former Secret Service, FBI, military special forces. They're essentially the Navy SEALs of private security. Every head in the restaurant turned toward the TV, including my parents. I watched their expressions as the magnitude of my actual professional standing began to dawn on them. Is that true? My mother asked quietly. You work with former FBI and Secret Service agents? I train some of them sometimes, I answered. I specialize in threat assessment and covert protection. The clients I can't name would surprise you. For the next hour, as more family members arrived, I found myself at the center of attention for the first time in my adult life. Aunts and uncles thanked me profusely for protecting Sarah's wedding. Cousins peppered me with questions. Even Sarah seemed genuinely impressed by footage of my professional skills. Throughout it all, my parents remained quietly absorbing this new reality where their disappointing daughter was suddenly being hailed as a hero. As the impromptu family gathering dispersed, my father spoke again, his voice hesitant. Victoria, we owe you an apology. We made assumptions, my mother added softly. We should have asked more questions, shown more interest in understanding your work. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of years of dismissal, but it was a start. As we prepared to leave, the NYPD detective who had been quoted in the news approached our table. Miss Chun, he said, extending his hand. I wanted to thank you personally. We've been tracking Vitelli's crew for months. Your intervention was textbook perfect. My father watched this exchange, the respect in the officer's voice unmistakable. Something shifted in his expression, perhaps the beginning of a reevaluation years in the making. She's a Chun, he said suddenly, his voice carrying familiar pride. Excellence runs in the family. Our eyes met, and for the first time in years, I felt seen by my father, not as the daughter who had disappointed him, but as a professional who had excelled in her chosen field. Over the following weeks, my family made genuine efforts to understand my career. My father researched Elite Guardian Services extensively, learning about the company's reputation and client base. My mother asked detailed questions about my training and responsibilities. Sarah, mortified that she had never fully grasped what I did, became one of my biggest supporters. The media attention faded, but the family dynamics had changed permanently. The truth was finally out, the careful deception shattered. What grew in its place was something healthier, a relationship based on understanding rather than assumptions. 3 months later, at our first normal family dinner in years, my father made an announcement that surprised everyone. I've been thinking about what success really means, he said, looking at each of us. I measured it too narrowly: degrees, titles, the right kind of profession. I miss seeing that true success is excellence in whatever path you choose. He turned to me specifically. Victoria, I'm proud of you. Not because your job turned out to be prestigious, but because you had the conviction to follow your own path despite our disapproval. That takes courage I'm not sure I ever had. The words I'd waited years to hear, not just pride, but acknowledgement of my internal compass rather than external validation. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey. The wedding incident had forced a confrontation that was perhaps inevitable. External validation had opened the door, but the real healing came through honest conversations that followed. The painful irony wasn't lost on me. After years of resenting my family's focus on prestige, it had taken exactly that kind of public recognition to break through our impasse. But perhaps that's human nature. Sometimes we need dramatic moments to shake us out of established patterns. In the end, the lesson wasn't that I needed my family's approval. It was that genuine understanding requires openness on all sides, willingness to explain without defensiveness, to listen without preconceptions, to recognize that different paths can all lead to meaningful lives. The security expert and the surgeons, the judge and her family, we were all finding our way toward a new understanding of success, of family, of what it means to truly see and support one another. And perhaps that was the most important security of all.